tree, let the moss and the brambles bury me. Down in the dark where the copperheads crawl in a cypress gray, I'm gonna lose it all. Deep in the swamp, I'm gonna lose it all.
For those of you that don't know, I spent the last 3 years working in law enforcement for the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. And honestly, becoming a cop was something that I've wanted to do for a long time. About 9 or 10 years ago, I went on a ride along with a buddy of mine who is a patrol sergeant, and I had the absolute time of my life. We were running to hot calls, chasing people around, arresting criminals, and at the end of the shift, I was exhausted but completely hooked. And after that, I couldn't stop thinking about it. At the time, I was already working in a successful real estate career, but I was overcommitted, felt like I was constantly working, constantly answering calls, and constantly feeling like I was never actually off. And I convinced myself that law enforcement might give me more balance. It sounds kind of crazy now, but in my mind, I thought, I'll work hard when I'm at work, but when I'm off, I'll actually be off. I also genuinely believed I could make a massive difference in the community that I love. But more than anything, I knew that if I didn't at least try it, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. So I made the switch. Honestly, it was everything I hoped it would be. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office was and still is an incredible place to work. The people are truly unbelievable. The deputies, the supervisors, the admin staff, the sheriff himself, just flat out awesome people. And one thing that stood out to me from the very beginning was that I was suddenly surrounded by absolute studs. Men and women who were sharp, capable, hardworking, and overly willing to make it difficult for criminals to do criminal things. One of my earliest and most favorite memories was that we chased this wanted fugitive with a nationwide extraditable warrant out of Florida into a house, tackled him to the ground, and then arrested him. Afterwards, I remember telling my sergeant, this is the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. From there, I went on to the academy and built friendships with some of the best people I've ever met in my life, and I'll cherish that forever. When I came back from the academy, I finished my field training, and in the last week of my training, I arrested a man who had literally just murdered his own father in cold blood. And at that point, I remember thinking to myself, I'm doing it. I'm actually living this dream that I've had for so long. In the meantime, we were chasing cars, arresting violent criminals, dealing with just genuinely dangerous people. And honestly, for a while, I thought there was no chance I would ever leave. But over time, reality started catching up with me. I was working night shift, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., and physically, it just started wrecking me. I was surviving on caffeine, adrenaline, and horrible sleep. On my off days, I basically felt jet lagged all the time, low energy, irritable, exhausted. And the hard part is my family got the worst version of me. What I originally thought would create more family time was actually doing the opposite, because eventually my days off became recovery days and people around me started noticing. Friends, family, they all kept saying the same thing. You're different, and not in a good way. At the same time, I also started realizing what policing actually looks like most nights. And this isn't me criticizing law enforcement at all, because I still have massive respect for the profession and the people doing it. But the reality is, a huge percentage of crime is committed by the same small group of repeat offenders over and over again. A lot of calls weren't these dramatic, action-packed moments people imagine. Most were adults making horrible decisions, usually involving alcohol, drugs, immaturity, or mental health issues. Yeah, there's some serious calls, some very serious calls, but a lot of nights are spent just driving around looking for sketchy people doing sketchy stuff. And honestly, sometimes nothing is going on at all. Slowly, I started realizing I don't know if this lifestyle is sustainable for me long term. And around the same time, my wife became pregnant with our third child, and naturally, that changed my perspective on a lot of things. But I also had this moment one night when I got involved in another pursuit. This other agency initiated it, and the suspect was driving recklessly, and at one point, I watched him nearly ram into another deputy at a very high rate of speed, which would have easily killed him if that deputy wasn't able to avoid it. The pursuit eventually turned onto a side road, and I thought I might be able to get ahead of it and deploy spikes, so I took off. And suddenly I'm ripping down this road at over 120 miles an hour in a patrol car that I already knew had issues. I remember coming up on the turn that I needed to make and thinking, what are you doing right now? Like, generally, what are you doing? Because in that moment, I realized something. This guy was probably going to spend a weekend in jail, get released, miss court, and continue doing the exact same shit he's always done. Meanwhile, I'm risking my life away from my wife and kids trying to stop him. And for the first time, I really started questioning whether the trade-off made sense anymore, especially after watching people I respected deeply struggle with stress-related health problems, heart issues, burnout, even a stress-induced stroke. And a lot of these guys were younger than me. Now I turned 40 this year, and eventually I had to sit down and be honest with myself. I love this profession, and I love the people I get to do it with, but I know this has to end. Now, with all that being said, I don't regret becoming a cop, not even a little bit. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. It taught me a lot about sacrifice, patience, perspective, and it helped me get better at communicating and how to deal with pressure. And honestly, it also made me deeply appreciate the freedom and flexibility that real estate can provide for me. It also gave me a completely different perspective on work ethic, because law enforcement is hard. It's really hard. The schedule, the stress, the risk, the responsibility, it's an extremely tough profession. And coming back into real estate after that experience honestly made me realize that this industry is capable of a much higher level of service than most people are receiving. Buyers and sellers are making massive financial decisions and trusting agents with one of the biggest moments of their lives. And I genuinely believe people deserve better. Better communication, better professionalism, better effort, better service, and better value for their money. As far as what you can expect from me from a content standpoint, one of the biggest things I want to do moving forward is show people that there's a different way to do this business. Over the last few years, I've had a lot of conversations with people who became frustrated with the real estate industry. They felt disconnected from the process, unsure of the value they're actually receiving, and honestly tired of content that felt fake and focused more on sales than service. And after spending the last few years in law enforcement, I think my perspective on service, responsibility, and trust has changed quite a bit. What I've come to realize is that very few consumers actually understand how real estate works. And that's something I want to change. I want to pull back the curtain and help buyers and sellers actually understand the process. I want people to know what makes a good deal and what makes a bad one. I want them to understand negotiations, investing, market conditions, strategy, mistakes to avoid, all of it. Because I truly believe the more informed people are, the better decisions they make. So for me, coming back to real estate isn't about falling back on something comfortable. It's about moving forward with a completely different perspective. I want to build a business that allows me to be present with my family, but still serving people at the absolute highest level I know how. And I want to prove that you can build something successful without sacrificing the people that matter most. Law enforcement changed me forever. It gave me friendships and experiences that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. And I'll always be grateful for that chapter. But at some point, I had to be honest with myself about the life I wanted for me and my family to actually live. And for me, it's time to get back to work.